Hey guys, what's happening? It's Engineer here, and I'm coming at y'all with a brand new little mini series that I'm going to be doing. So, as you all are probably realizing, I do a lot of different things. One of those things that I really pride myself on doing is cosplay. It's been a hobby that I've been doing for several years now, at least until I've started college way back in the day. So specifically, I want to take an opportunity here to talk a little bit about the Mandalorian mercs. So for those of you that aren't aware, the Mandalorian mercs are one of a few large worldwide organizations that host and sponsor Star Wars themed events. This could be anything from baseball games, could be anything from charity events, anything from even private birthday parties. The bottom line is that this is a very charitable organization that does a lot of great work using the Star Wars IP. The Mandalorian Mercs is one of these many organizations. A couple of other good examples of these organizations are like the 501st or the Rebel Legion. But specifically, we're going to talk about the Mandalorian Mercs today because, let's be completely honest guys, the Mandalorian's pretty freaking awesome. So a couple years ago, I actually made my own Mandalorian armor well before the hype of the Mandalorian. Solely on the fact that I'm just a huge Boba Fett fan. So anyways, I built this armor and I tried to apply for the club. Unfortunately, my armor was just a little bit kind of janky. It didn't meet a lot of the regulation that the club has in terms of having a quality product. So now that I've moved to a new area, and now that I have more opportunity to actually pursue a lot of my personal projects, I decided, you know what, let's go ahead and take this armor that I built a few years ago and let's sort of upgrade it. Let's add a couple things to it, make a few things a little bit more pristine so that it can actually meet the standards of this club and I can eventually join this organization. So to give you all just a little bit of insight on where the project is right now, the armor is more or less entirely complete. However, there is a laundry list of different things that I need to do with the armor before it's actually qualifiable to become an official member. It's safe to say there is quite a bit of work to be done on this armor before it could actually be certified under the guidelines of the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club. To give you all a little snapshot of where I'm at right now, this is the helmet. As you can see, it's a not too bad of a construction. The rangefinder here is broken and the electronics are falling out. And in the inside here, I used some just furniture foam, things you could find at like a Joann Fabric or whatever. And yeah, the helmet's a decent construction, but it's safe to say that there is a lot to be done on it. It's definitely going to be a fixer-upper type of project. So what I'm going to start doing here is I'm going to start by taking the helmet that I just showed y'all, and I'm going to take this rangefinder, so let me pull it up again here, take this little rangefinder assembly here, and I'm just going to replace it. Because to be completely honest, the cross-section of the little antenna right here that holds up the rangefinder, it's pretty small. So structurally, it's very unstable, and it's very possible for it to break again. So I'm going to get completely around that by switching out the rangefinder assembly for macro binoculars. So macro binoculars are a very popular tool that is used frequently throughout the Star Wars universe. Specifically, if you look at Commander Cody, you'll notice he uses macro binoculars and a couple other clone troopers. Needless to say, this is a very rare type of attachment that mercs have. Very few of them actually use it, but there are a few, and it's a very unique sort of aspect. So, to start this laundry list of changes and upgrades that need to be done for this armor, we're going to start specifically with building and constructing this macro binocular set from scratch. So let's go ahead and let's switch over to the workbench, and I'll kind of walk you all through sort of my process and how to build armor entirely from scratch. Okay, so here's the helmet in all of its glory. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to make some macro binoculars, and there's a million ways we could go about making these macro binoculars. If you look at a typical clone trooper macro binoculars, sort of the way that it's designed is there's sort of this large arc that comes up across the top of the head with sort of a box structure that where it kind of caves in to a little view sight in the front. And that can be manually folded towards the front that comes along the field of view for the eyesight. So I'm gonna try to adopt some sort of geometry like that. I'll be completely honest, I have no idea how it's gonna look. I'm sort of just gonna kind of build it and just sort of see what happens as I sort of construct it, seeing what kind of looks I get. And additionally, I spent a lot of time when I first built this costume building this cool little piece right here that sat inside of my rangefinder. So what happened is I would be able to lower my rangefinder, and then this would power on, and it would start showing different characters that look kind of Arabosh like in Star Wars. And also these little LEDs out front would blink. So I want to be able to take these electronics out of this rangefinder and be able to incorporate it somewhere on the macro binoculars. So that's going to be another thing I'm going to try to kind of figure out on the fly. Definitely going to remove all of this tape here as well, just to make it look a little bit cleaner. And the way I'm going to start this is I'm going to be using just some basic cardboard that I have from a moving box. And I'm going to basically cut it out into different shapes that'll make the general geometry of this helmet here. And then with that, just sort of start to construct the basic structure of the macro binoculars. And by doing that, I could then take this piece here and later on we'll fiberglass it. And once we fiberglass it, we'll overlay it with Bondo, we'll sand it down, and then we'll go to paint and we'll install it onto the helmet assembly. And that's really all there is to it. So let's go ahead and swap gears here, and let's just start making a base structure for the macro binoculars and just kind of see where this takes us. See if we get a disastrous outcome or something beautiful. Who knows? So we just got finished making the base for the helmet mounted macro binoculars for the Mandalorian. I apologize, I didn't really show a whole lot of footage of this process, but there really wasn't a whole lot to show. All I really was doing was just cutting out pieces of cardboard and just gluing them together with hot glue. And just trying to find different shapes and sizes that looks good. Like, I don't even know what this is up here, but it looks cool. And once I kind of go to take it to paint and detail, it'll look pretty neat. Let's see here. If you look down the center there, you can kind of see the viewport for the macro binoculars. These are the stems that are going to be mounted into the helmet to help kind of give it some sort of lever to allow it to go up and down. And there's also this void on the side here, which is designed to house this guy. And all this is just that repurposed electronics that I had in my rangefinder for my helmet. And I'm just gonna take this guy and just incorporate it into the macro binoculars. But before I do that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this battery and I'm gonna remove it and replace it. Solely because this guy is just a little corroded, a little damaged, and it's seen the end of its days. It's been used for so many different projects. Its time has come, but nothing really to it. And additionally, I'll also be doing a little bit of coating on this. Originally, with the rangefinder, there was an Arduino inside of the helmet that sent a signal to this assembly that whenever the rangefinder was lowered, that signal, when it's into this guy, it will then allow it to turn on, and then vice versa when the rangefinder went up. but I don't need that anymore. So I'm going to go in and modify the code to allow this switch to be that on-off parameter for the code. Nothing really to it. But real quick, let me just show you real fast how this guy looks with the helmet. So here's the helmet, and I've already taken the liberty of taking out the ears for both sides of the helmet. This is where the rangefinder used to be, and then this was just kind of an aesthetic piece. And I'm going to use this to create two new patterns. So for this guy here, I have the old earpiece that's just going to slap right back on there when this guy gets installed. And then I created this out of cardboard. And this guy is basically, let me see if I can get this set up here without messing up. It's going to sit like this. The rangefinder will sit on there. And then this little guy here will just sandwich over that like this to keep it in place. And that's all that's going to be. So with the rangefinder, or not the rangefinder, the macro binoculars, I apologize if I said anything earlier. Basically the macro binoculars are going to come in and they're just going to kind of rest on it like this. So if I have it in the up position, this is what it looks like. And then if I put it in the down position, it looks like this. Very cool. Something you would see in like the Clone Wars or something with like a sniper or specialist class. So really cool there. I'm actually pretty excited about getting that done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take these pieces, this guy, this guy, this guy. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fiberglass overlay everything to give it some strength and some rigidity. And then I'm going to use typical car Bondo and just kind of go over these little like pyramid edges you can see there with the Bondo filler to kind of give it that smooth, seamless transition like you see with this guy. This guy had the same exact construction made out of cardboard, but then I went over with Bondo and fiberglass, and I got this as an end result. So we're going to do the same thing there with these guys, and even this guy here. And once that all gets finished, we're going to take this bad boy, we're going to change out his battery, and then we're going to install him inside, make sure everything looks really good and fits really well, and then we're going to try to take this guy and just mount it into the helmet. All right, so this video is getting a little bit too long. I'm doing a lot of talking. So I'm going to have to go to the next episode where I'll actually start to do a little bit more of the fiberglassing and a little bit more of the actual structural work for the macro binoculars as well as the side assemblies. So stay tuned for that. It's going to come out really soon. Believe me, I've been doing a lot of this stuff kind of in parallel. So there's actually a lot of episodes that are being brewed up as we speak right now. So thank you all so much for checking out my YouTube series on this. I know it's a little bit of a deviation from R2, but don't worry. I have ordered all the parts to actually get to the motor work for R2. So actually very soon I'll be resuming that work and getting right into that. So in the meantime, go ahead and click on subscribe if you haven't just yet. And if you're curious about more of what I do on an everyday basis, I strongly encourage you to check out both my Twitter as well as my Instagram. I'm usually very active on Twitter, so if you have any questions, concerns, or you just want any requests, you can let me know directly there. And I highly encourage you to follow my account there because I usually post stuff all over the place about what I usually do. Well, that's all I have for this video. I'll see you all really soon on the next one. Thank you all very much, and you'll have a great and safe day out there, guys.